Hey, welcome back to the Swampmaster development series. I'm going through right now and correcting a tile set thing I messed up where I created this treasure box tile here, and I completely forgot that I was already using what I thought was a blank tile as my path here, the walking path that kind of indicates which way a player is supposed to go. So everywhere that was just a plain tan tile has now been replaced by treasure chests. So I've got to go through here and update these back to what looks like an actual pathway you can walk on. This is the danger in modifying existing tile sets that are already in use for things. And this is a good reason why you want to plan out your game ahead of time so that you don't make this kind of mistake. But thankfully I haven't used these too much. This is just like basic pathing that I have set up kind of at the very start of the game to give players an indication of which direction they're supposed to head in. And I think I've mostly got this fixed now. Yeah, so I have the pathing here. There's my treasure box set up here kind of as a teaser. When you walk through this town, it's going to be like, oh, how do I get up there? I can't get up through this. So then you start thinking later on in the game, like, okay, if I get back around here somehow, I got to look for a way to get down to this little island area above the town. And let's see here. That's showing off screen. So this right here is my next screen over. And this isn't actually going to show up because this is the HUD box up here. This is covered by the HUD, which is your black area of the screen where you have your health bars and your stats and everything. But they do still have tiles back here behind the scenes. So it looks like I've got most of that pathing set up correctly. Nope, here's more. Awesome. And I don't want these all to be treasure boxes, obviously. This down here looks pretty good. I think this is a different tile set, so it's not impacted by that. This looks good here. I don't have anything else set up for pathing for that. So the area I was working on, where I was trying to intentionally place a treasure box, was this area up here where I have this boss fight. I was just working on this monster right here. I made his eyes bigger because, I don't know, it was just not reading right. And a lot of the time when you're doing these 8-bit graphics, you have to kind of test out a few different things to see what's going to work and what isn't, and you know, what's going to read to the person playing the game so they can figure out what's actually happening. But yeah, I have a treasure box back here past this monster. So this guy, I don't think he's going to move. He's going to stay right where he is, and if I can figure out how to get him to shoot projectiles at the player, that would be awesome. He's got his minions here. I might replace these with something else, but these are good placeholder minions. I did get the Gorilla Moth graphics to work correctly, thanks to Dale for helping out. Dale from NESMaker commented on the last video. I think what the problem was is I didn't have the monster groups set correctly. So I went back in and updated the monster group. So when you're creating your monsters, you have to put them in a monster group. You can have 4 monsters in a group, and then each screen has a monster group set to that screen. So you have 4 different monsters you can put on a screen, but it also makes a reference to a specific tile set. And so when that glitchy error was occurring, it was pulling in tiles from the wrong tile set, and so it wasn't displaying this Gorilla Moth graphic here. Alright, so back to our test screen here. I'm gonna load the game up and we'll see what these moths do. Where's my controller? Here's my controller. Okay. These things are great, these retro power controllers. You can get them for all different game systems and plug them in. Retro Power if you want to sponsor my channel. Okay, so you can see the graphics here are definitely fixed. The behavior of the monster is not so great at the moment, but we'll get that fixed. We can go in there and mess with the settings. And I've also gone in and done some palette changes on our marsh grass here, on these ferns. And this is basically like the oldest trick in the book when it comes to NES stuff. Just taking a tile and then modifying the color of it to create more depth or to create a different type of object or something. If you go back to like Mario 3, like the original Mario 3 for the NES, the clouds and the bushes are the exact same graphic. They're just rendered either white or green to make them a cloud or a bush, and that saves memory on the NES cartridge, because that's one of the great things about building games like this is you have to work within the confines of what the system can handle. And I think having those limitations really invokes creativity. You have to think, how can I create my vision within the spectrum of what this system can actually do? And for me, that's really fun. But here, let's go up to our Gorilla Moth monster here, and we're going to go into... The animation is looking pretty good, but I'm going to go into the object details, and this is where you can set different animations based on what the monster is doing. Here you've got your stats. I still need to learn more about this, like getting the health and things set up, so, you know, if I strike the monster once or twice with the stick, how much damage is that doing, you know, based on what its health is here. And then I do see that there's experience that you can get. I haven't read too much into that yet. I'm hoping there's documentation. You can also check the NESMaker's forum, is super useful, and then the Discord channel is really useful too. Lots of helpful people in there. But here's your action steps. So this is what you're telling the monster to do as far as its behavior goes. So right now it's set to move random as action step 1, and then move toward player. If it's set to 0 as a timer, then that creates a random number of seconds that it behaves in that way. And this one, the end action is loop. And what we want it to do is advance. So it'll go from action step 0, run for a random amount of time, and then it's going to move on to the next step. And we're just going to leave it as default animation. Okay, so it's going to move random. For testing, let's just give this timer of like 3, 4. 3, 4. 4. Let's do 4. And then I'm going to have it move toward the player kind of aggressively. And then, yeah, we can kick it back to moving random, or I think I want it to stop moving for a second. And what I'm going to do is when it stops moving, I'm going to set it so that the animation goes back to this frame where it's not flapping its wings. So it's going to sit like this, kind of like, I think in like Zelda 2, you'll see like bats just hanging, or maybe even Zelda 1, you'll see like bats just kind of hanging out on the screen, and then after a short duration, they'll move toward the player and attack. Might be in both games, actually, come to think of it. But yeah, okay, so we're going to set it to stop moving, and then this should be advance. And then we're going to have it go to first. So it goes move random for 4, move toward player for 4, and then stop moving for 4. And animation speed there set to 0 is fine because it's not moving. I don't want it to move too quickly toward the player because I don't want it to be in like an instant kill kind of thing. That looks good. This is our bounding box. So this tells you, you know, I mean, it's a bounding box, right? This is where you can hit the monster for damage, or if the monster touches you, it's going to damage you. Solid object reaction. Yeah, this I'm going to set to reverse direction so it doesn't go off screen like that. Edge object reaction. Yeah. Let's see, move opposite direction. Well, solid object would be for more if it hits a collision tile. hurt reactions, I have to set those up for all the monsters. That's just not part of the game yet. Here it's checked as a monster. You set up NPCs in the same way you do monsters, just check them as NPC and not monster. So let's check this and see if anything's different now. Actually, let me turn off the sound for that screen because it's playing that wave noise and I don't want it to do that. Screen info. Let's do no change. This error comes up sometimes when you hit save. I don't think it actually impacts anything. I think if you just hit continue, like, everything's fine. So, I'm gonna just ignore that. Aha! Much, much better. Cool. Alright, I'm actually really happy with the way that turned out. Look at that. So they're doing some random movement. Then they come toward me. They're overlapping, which I'm not huge on, but that might be fixable. And then they're going to pause. And we can shoot them and kill them. Fantastic. That's awesome. So the next thing then would be to configure their animation to match their movement so that they're stopped like this and then they open their wings when they start attacking. This I'm not 100% sure how to do offhand, but I'm going to go in and figure it out, so just bear with me for a second while I try to set this up. So, okay, animation types. Let's do stop. Or actually, I want to call that wait. Actually, I want to call it still, but I think I need to just settle on a name. It's not that important. Okay. I'm going to call it still. And then let's put... I think it's going to have the same animation whether it's moving toward the player or whether it's flapping around aimlessly. So let's just call this still in motion. And then this means that I need to set up different animation types. So animation, manage animations, okay. Default animation, let's do still. Let's rename this. Still, okay. And then I'm gonna call this motion. So I have still in motion now. Animation still, animation motion. So let's set... I wish I had done that backwards because I'm going to have to rebuild this now, but that's fine. Or is it? Let's do that in reverse. I don't want to rebuild my animations. Okay. Great, so motion and still. Motion is playing this animation here, which is great. Still, I'm going to set that to 1 frame. And we can actually set that to 2 by 2. If you hold Shift and click, you can select that entire 2 by 2 grid there. Okay, and then that's perfect. Still, motion. Woo. Oh, that updated this too. Okay, that's not gonna work. We need to change that back to a width of 4, which means I get to reset all this now, I think. Maybe not. Okay, it's almost working. I'm using this black tile here, up here as a nothing tile. And this is another example of like, okay, if I forget that I'm using this as a black blank tile, and I come in and I draw another monster here, then this top left quadrant is going to start showing up here on my Gorilla Moth graphic, so another instance of needing to pay attention to what you're saving and where. Okay, so I've got motion and still now. Let's go back up to object properties, still, motion. Let's set all these to still. And this is all set to motion, that's good. And animation type still, move random. Let's set that to motion. Set that to motion, and still stop moving. Cool. That should be perfect. I want to speed these up a little bit because they're moving a little bit slowly, I think. This is our animation speed. That looked pretty good. You know what? Maybe we'll speed up the animation a little bit once it's moving toward the player, so it's kind of agitated, right? It's attacking. And let's move that back down. So 4 timer for all of those, and then we're making him just a little bit angry when he sees that player. He wants to go kill him because he's misguided. Okay, let's try. See how this looks now. Okay, a little bit glitchy, but I can fix that. And their movement speed is okay. I want to set a higher timer for how long it's performing those actions. So I'm going to up this to 8, move random, move toward player, 5, and then still, I want it to kind of just wait there ominously. So that's going to double the amount of time it does that and make its movements a little bit less chaotic. That should be way better. And then we need to figure out where that glitch was happening. So we look through all these. I think it was probably on the still one. Yep, there it is. Okay, so this needs to be set to my blank graphic here. And this should be in the center. There we go. That's much better. Okay, let's test again. Okay, not perfect, but we're getting there. I'm guessing I have one of the animations maybe not set correctly, but I'm going to look into that. But overall, I'm going to consider this a success. We did some remapping of tile sets and fixed some glitches, and we've got our monsters working a lot better now. So I'm feeling real good about progress today. Thanks for joining me, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Swampmaster editing, if you want to learn more about NESMaker and homebrew NES games. We're going to get into Family Studio at some point too, making music. It's going to be fun.